Let's have a look at Pretender Design and National Heroes. First of all, you're going to want a decently high Dominion score, because the Eagle Warrior is cheap. It's good for its price, but if your opponent is building something like Anakites or Vans or any other high priced sacred, with most things in this game you get what you pay for, so one Eagle Warrior is not going to stand up to one Anakite. So you're going to have to need a decently high Dominion score in order to build enough of them in order to actually defeat them gold for gold. You can completely tank these two skills, production and order, because you don't need them. The Eagle Warrior doesn't take any resources and not that many recruitment points. If you need stuff to hold the line, the warriors are your guys and they don't need much resources and recruitment points either. The Jaguar Warrior does require 31 recruitment points, but this is more a bit of a luxury thing. Plus you will still be able to get a decent amount of them out of your capital, because your capital is going to have very high population. So you can completely tank order and production. Heat, I would recommend going to Heat 3. You already prefer Heat 1, and most of what you're going to lose is gold. You have Sun Priests for fire magic, which is great in Heat. If you run up against somebody who's better at fire magic, you also have Rain Priests who cast rain on them. And rain is actually more effective in the heat than in the cold, because in the cold it becomes snow, which doesn't really do all that much against fire magi. So Heat 3 is acceptable. I personally like to go Growth 1, because you can cast Blood Fecundity. Let's see, where is it? No, that's not it. Here, Blood Fecundity, which for the price of 1 Blood Slave a month and an entry fee of 10 will increase the growth of a province by 2, so then you're growth 3 anyway. You can do this on the provinces you build a fort, so the ones you care about, and then you can just blood hunt the other ones to death and conquer more land and repeat. This is completely acceptable. Luck we're going to talk about after we've looked at the heroes, because that's kind of a complicated thing. And then magic, if you can spare the points, you can go magic 3. Then these Mictlan priests become research 10. Same for the sky priests, and you can actually research pretty fast. But you can also decide that research is something that happens to other people. Just go drain and either research with items, research in somebody else's dominion, or just run at somebody and conquer them with low research and figure it out later. So before we continue with Pretender Design, we're gonna have to take a look at the national heroes. There are 2 of them which are specific to middle-aged Mictlan, and the other ones are for all the Mictlans, which actually very lucky that we keep them. This is with the Worthy Heroes mod on, but any game I've joined ever had Worthy Heroes on, so you can kind of count on that. And if you play single player, I wholeheartedly recommend putting Worthy Heroes in your game. It doesn't change the balancing much, but it just gives a little bit of extra flavor to them. So this first one, the Priest King, is basically the Lawgiver's dad. He gives you some nice crosspaths and he turns into a serpent, but he's not really a game changer. Just a little bit of crosspaths and magic access. Then there's the Priest King. He also turns into a serpent. Yeah, he's basically just a shape-shifting upgraded Quattle. One nice thing about the first one though is that he's a priest level 4. So if you make him the prophet, he'll be a priest level 5 and he can cast a priest spell that will increase the priest level of your lower level priests on the battlefield, which can be useful if you're fighting something that's like undead or something that demands for that, or demons. But if things go well, you're going to be the one with the demons. Then there's this guy, he's for all the Mictlans. He is Dead 3, Blood 3, which... So if you take high luck, but we'll get to that, you will probably get this guy, the minimum arrival turns turn 5, and that will break you into Dead and Blood. So it's possible not to take either of these spots on your pretender, and just gamble that this guy is going to show up. And then there's this guy, he's a multi-hero. So breaking into that is definitely something that's going to happen to you at some point. He also has a 25% chance to be blood level 1. So that's also a way to get a blood economy going. So you can either go with luck 3, then you'll be turmoil luck, which gives you a lot of gems and very likely will give you the heroes. Or you can go misfortune. Do not go misfortune 3 because misfortune 3 is bad, especially in combination with drain, which you might also take. Going drain 3, misfortune 3 is just disaster waiting to happen. You'll get parties of knights besieging your capital, you'll get labs burning down, all that stuff. So if you're going misfortune, I would go misfortune 1 or 2. This would mean that in that case you would need to take blood on your pretender if you ever want to break into blood, because with this much misfortune those heroes probably won't show up. For magic paths that you want to definitely take air because of the bonus, air 4 already is air 6, so I would never let that go. You're gonna want to take nature because that's also a bonus. On top of that, you are actually quite free. You can go with some astral for some magic weapons. Since you're using a lot of weapons, that's probably good. R7 will give you thunder weapons. Thunder weapons are great against anything that isn't sacred. Things that are sacred tend to have some shock resistance because people really like that. So maybe not the best. With the nature you can either take some poison resistance and some hit points, or you can go up a little higher and get regeneration. Regeneration is very useful because you got some summonable high hit point sacreds, as well as having these magi, which then also will have regeneration, and you'll have regenerating communion slaves. Strength does really well on this nation, so if you take some paths in earth, getting some strength of the earth could work. Taking earth is a good idea in general because you don't have any earth on anything, including your national heroes. So having it on your pretender is the only way to ever get hammers, except from trading them with other players, but this usually happens, but don't rely on other players to do what you want. If you're gonna take blood, you can take blood 4 for blood surge, or go up to 7 for blood surge and strength of the flesh, which really helps you multiple attacks. Or what I like to do is go up to blood 8 and take blood vengeance, and then later on anything that has an advantage against demons, like double damage against demons or stuff like that, ends up just killing itself. You could go with an imprisoned rainbow. I tested expansion with this and it works. The Eagle Warriors will be pretty resilient with this because of the Undying. Resilient will give you, let's see, this is 6 and then 2 more, so 8 extra hit points before they die on a chassis that normally has 12. The swiftness and defense skill will give you 3 extra defense skill, and you'll have 10 resistance to fire, shock and poison, which outside of cold is everything you can have resistance to, and cold is not that common, especially in the early game. Magic weapons will help you deal with anything that is harder to kill. Then there's the strength and the blood surge, which will make sure you hit a little harder, so that's pretty good. Turmoil luck gives you a lot of gems. And the magic skill means that you'll research really fast, so all of that's good. The biggest problem I probably have with this is that it doesn't have a real good late game plan. Blood 4 at turn 36 is no way to break into a blood economy. That's gonna give you a blood economy by turn 60 or something. And she's gonna have other stuff you want her to do as well, because why else would you have gotten all these crosspaths? And it is possible that the national heroes will help with that, but I haven't tested it, and it's not gonna be as great as taking blood on an awake or dormant pretender even. Another option would be to go with a dormant titan. This will expand really well because, well, you got +6 strength, so your eagle warriors basically kill anything they hit. It does, however, mean that they die really easily. The regeneration is not necessary at all in the first year, and it helps out really well. I tried this with Berserker, but Berserker is probably a trap, because your Magi are gonna run forward if they take 1 damage, and late in the game it's not that hard to do 1 damage to all of your opponents, and then all of the Magi start running forward, so I think Berserker is a very bad idea. The Titan is extremely strong, and she can also Cloud Trapeze, which is going to help out if anybody puts anything in your lands that's hard to catch. Other than that, she can Blood Hunt, she can craft earth items like hammers. The only thing I've noticed with this build is that it's kind of hard to scrape together enough gold at turn 7 for your first fort. Because you got Dominion 10 and you're spending so much money on Eagle Warriors, but that might just be a good problem to have. This is the build I ended up taking. With the knowledge I have today, I would probably do it a bit different, because I think this is too vulnerable in the early game. With a Dominion score of 6, you don't get enough Eagle Warriors, and if somebody were to rush you, you would lose. However, later on, with the summons, it will do really well with the Blood Vengeance and Regeneration, because your enemies will basically beat themselves to death for you. It's also really good at getting a blood economy started with a blood score of 8. And then after that it can summon a lot of Ocelotls, like a lot. It is possible with all the right items to get 21 Ocelotls in a single summon with this guy, because you got so many slots, and other options for Ocelotl summoning are usually the immobiles, and the immobiles don't have a lot of slots. The thunder weapons I am no longer sure about. They are great, but with what I know now, and with a lot of lightning resistance on sacreds that lots of people have, it might be better to just take double swiftness, or even swiftness and some lightning resistance of my own. The Stygian Flash I found really helps out keeping your guys alive. I am no longer certain it's necessary, but I wanted to have that 5 on my pretender. I wasn't counting on the national heroes at all. So I wanted to have that 5 in order to summon liches later on. Liches are another great endgame strategy, but I think this build may have been a bit greedy, and I have taken multiple endgame strategies, while I should have had a build that focused a little bit more in the early game. If you're ever playing a blitz with some friends or something and you want to have a laugh, this might be an option. I tested it for expansion, it does expansion fine, although it has a bit of a high attrition rate. You get 10 Eagle Warriors per turn in every fort, as long as you build your forts in high population provinces, which is pretty good. You get 33 hit points of Blood Vengeance per Eagle Warrior. And if you get any Jaguar Warriors out, which I doubt, that's even more Blood Vengeance. So lots and lots and lots of Blood Vengeance. Blood Vengeance is, however, counterable by things like casting anti-magic. So you're not gonna win any big game with this, but if you want to lean into the Blood Vengeance as much as possible, just for fun, this might work. Now, if you like the idea of Blood Vengeance and you want a recommendation on how to play it, I would probably recommend you go with this instead of My Pretender. Because I think My Pretender really is too vulnerable in the early game. You will still have the Blood Vengeance regeneration and thunder weapons, Stygian Flesh to have some survivability in the early game, which I am no longer certain is actually a necessity, but I played a game with it, it worked, so I'm keeping it in. The magic weapons are to deal with more dangerous and skillful opponents who do things like etherealness, invulnerability, and mist form, which magic weapons all counter. It has 2 extra points of Dominion score, which means you get 2 extra eagles a turn, which may save your life early on. And then to pay for it all it does have 1 extra point of misfortune, which is unfortunate, but you're gonna have to deal with it. One of the advantages this also has is that it has 200 hit points and it can collapse a piece on top of an army or a tug or whatever's bothering you, so getting rushed is not really a big deal with this god, as long as you manage to get to it's enchantment 4. If you get to enchantment 4, you can just cloud a piece on top of anybody and destroy their army, kill their tug, whatever you're dealing with. I don't think they're gonna stand up against a 200 hit point statue in the early game. I had the idea that I could do that as well with My Pretender, because My Pretender can transform into a white mage if I manage to cast Twiceborn on him. But Twiceborning a size 5 chassis would cost 25 dead gems, which I would have to trade for, and I would have to have enchantment 4 researched, which once again you need for Cloud Trapeze and Flaming Arrows anyway, so it is likely that you will research enchantment 4, but if you're getting rushed and you can't research enchantment 4 quickly, that might even compound your problems, and the Freak Lord is not very strong beforehand. He only becomes very strong if you transform him into a white mage. So this would be a much safer option to go with. The biggest disadvantage to it is not the misfortune, but the fact that you only have 1 misc slot instead of all the slots that the Freak Lord has. This is too bad. It means you're not getting nearly as many Ocelotls in the late game. You're also gonna have to empower in fire to get the Ocelotls, but that's just 50 fire gems. 50 fire gems is not a problem by the time you've researched Blood 8. So yeah, overall I think this is a more balanced option to go with. It also has 2 levels in Blood Searcher, which doesn't hurt, which a Freak Lord doesn't have. So you'll probably bootstrap your blood economy even faster with this thing. It slightly lessens one of the late game builds, namely the Ocelotls, but I think it's still very good, the Ocelotls, as they are. So yeah. Okay, so how I do with the Pretender I chose, we will see in the next episode.